Dia Eve, Andreas Sermanis anamdom, Tome Uktaron IOSH, Augusto me Haravetsoste Kayent, Leshan Trobranchi Atos Ciarán Aran. Now, if I've managed to get my Irish Gaelic right, that should be something like, hello, I'm Dr Andrew Sharman, President of IOSH. I'm very happy to be talking to the three branches in Ireland today. I just wanted to address you all as your president with a note of support and my very best green shirt in honor of the gorgeous Emerald Isle as we try to cope as best as we can through this unprecedented challenge as the pandemic continues. Covid-19, the coronavirus, has and still is continuing to disrupt our lives, isn't it? We still have to isolate ourselves or distance ourselves from family, friends, and other people, working in different ways, not being able to engage or interact in the ways that we're used to. And it's really quite unsettling. From a personal perspective, I've also found myself in a difficult, challenging situation. At the end of February, I went for a quick 4-day trip to visit family back home in Scotland. And that turned into more than 3 months there with a weekend bag. Whilst I was delighted to be back in my homeland, I was fed up living out of a suitcase for over 3 months in an Airbnb rental apartment and not being able to go and see my family or anyone else. I also managed to contract the coronavirus and had several unpleasant symptoms for several weeks, in fact, which the doctors told me would hang around for quite some time, and indeed they really did. Finally, I made it home to Switzerland, where I live, around the end of June, and it's been brilliant to have a few weeks back in my own bed with a choice of different clothes, including my lucky Irish shirt. Like many of us, I've kind of had enough of this pandemic, and cabin fever certainly has been settling into me. I want to get back to my old life and the way that it was. But I guess all we can do is be patient, which is something that many of you will know doesn't come easy to me. I like to get stuff done. But despite all said, we must take away the positives, embracing the time that we have had to spend with those who we love, to find ways to strengthen connections with others through webinars like this, or on video chats, phone calls, letters, social media, and instant chat messaging. I found myself over the last few months using all of those things, but also particularly doing something that hasn't been usual to me. And that's writing handwritten notes to people that I realize that I've probably lost a bit of touch with, and they're still important in my life. So I've just been trying to reach out and say hello and let them know that I appreciate them. Of course, there's the constant news feeds on the pandemic, isn't there? They're hard to avoid as the coronavirus dominates every newspaper, news feed, and news reports. But there's a balance that we need to find. You see, I think we can get too much news. I think one of the biggest risks from this pandemic is the infodemic that accompanies it. So I've been trying hard not to watch too much news over the last few months, and instead take my updates from the scientific institutions once or twice a week. I guess we're all finding our own ways to cope and to understand what the pandemic means for us, and what our role is, whether as a husband, partner, wife, brother, sister, father, mother, friend, colleague, co-worker, or in our other relationships too. And that kind of takes me to what I think is a crucial point about this pandemic, that if this period has taught us anything, it's the importance of human connection. Whilst governments around the world continue to tell us that we need social distance between people in order to reduce the risk of spread of the virus, I think the term social distance is poorly constructed and in fact maybe even is a misnomer. What the governments are talking about is physical distance, making sure that we have specific space between human beings. But what I've noticed through technology like Zoom and through the ways that we're learning to interact with those around us is that social distance is actually reducing as we find ways to connect with more people and find better and more innovative ways to connect and share emotions, perspectives, and experiences. And I think that's quite a fantastic thing, a great positive to come out of the pandemic. One thing that's really important to me as your president is the work that you do. It's never been more important than right now that our profession has an opportunity to come right to the fore in this pandemic. At the end of March, as the pandemic was really kicking off for us here in Europe, I recorded a video for all of you as IOSH members, nearly 48,000 of us in 130 countries now. I did another video at the beginning of June, and I'm planning another one again next week. You may have seen them. They've been dubbed as my co-videos. And I talk about all the amazing efforts of IOSH practitioners right around the world. Because over the last few months, I've reached out and spoken with many of you in all 130 countries about the challenges that we're facing as we try to help organizations remain safe and healthy for their workers wherever they are. And many of our IOSH members have been working from home with families and kids around, or from makeshift desks on our dining tables, in our sheds in the garden, or our spare rooms, or in my case, an Airbnb rental in a country that I don't normally live in. And then, of course, there are those of us who are in different, displaced, or unusual work environments. Regardless of where we are, we're all joining forces as one to ensure that we and our membership remain strong. And it's a real pride and honor to be your president right now, particularly in these turbulent times of the pandemic. If you haven't already seen them, you can listen to a copy of those recordings, the co-videos, on the IOSH Coronavirus Resources page. Please feel free to share those in your networks too. In the videos, I also spoke about the IOSH Benevolent Fund, because right now, many of our members may be facing hardships during this challenging time. And that's where the Benevolent Fund could offer a lifeline of financial or other support to members who are struggling. And I encourage you to take advantage of this if you find yourself in that situation, or if you know someone that might be able to use a little bit of help right now. To find out more, just please visit iosh.com/benevolent fund. To show our support, every member of the IOSH presidential team has donated to this vital fund, and we'd appreciate all other contributions, no matter how small. Every pound, dollar, or euro donated to the Benevolent Fund can really help one of our members. So if you're able to do so, please consider boosting this fund to help your fellow colleagues. To donate, it's really simple. Just takes 2 or 3 minutes with a credit or debit card online. Just go to iosh.com/how to donate. It goes without saying that we'll all be feeling somewhat anxious by the changes that we've been experiencing over the last few months and into the future. To address this, I'll soon be handing over to Ciarán Delaney, a council member who'll present a session on how our mental and physical well-being can be affected in these difficult times and how to mitigate those effects. You see, our members are critical to a safe and healthy recovery from times of crisis and occupational risk like this. It's important that our membership is supported, and the presidential team are very proud of the efforts that we've dedicated to doing this. So far, the presidential team has taken this presentation to nearly 2,000 members across our network, and we've still got several branch events scheduled for the forthcoming weeks. The poll results from those sessions show that over 65% of our members say they've felt an element of stress or anxiety due to the current situation, which evidences that we really need to talk about not just our physical well-being, but our mental well-being too. A short while back, I put out a call to action to our IOSH Council members. They're the voice of the membership, for them to get involved and earn their seats and to engage with our membership. And I'm really pleased that today we've got Ciarán on this webinar with us, addressing all of our IOSH members. We also have Jonathan Hughes, one of our vice presidents in my team, who will be managing the chat and the Q&A box. So any questions that you have for Ciarán in the Wellbeing session, or for me at the end of this session, please start typing them into the Q&A box, and Jonathan will pick those up and share them with me and Ciarán. I have another meeting to go to immediately after this one, so when I've finished my address, I'll pause just for a few minutes then to take questions or any comments on any subject, anything I've said here today, or anything else that's on your mind that you'd like to talk with me about. There is nothing that's off limits, nothing that's off the table. But please do know that I will need to leave before 2:30 or 2:25. I have another call in just 20 minutes from now. So I hope that you take something away from today's presentation with Ciarán and the question and answer session facilitated by John. Because during these difficult times, it's important to remember that the little things we do often make the biggest difference. The way we look out for one another, the way we look after our loved ones, our friends, our neighbors, the way we recognize and thank those that are working throughout this period, whether it's the key workers, those on the front line, or your colleagues at work. a phone call, a letter, a video call, even a thumbs up and a smile, whatever we can do to stay connected. Thank you for joining us today. We're all on this journey together. As one IOSH, we will succeed this virus. Every week I'm sharing my personal journey in my LinkedIn posts that I'm calling The Life of the IOSH President. And I encourage you to get involved in the discussions there. Some of these discussions have been reaching up to 10,000 people in a week. And the comments that are being shared by people like you around the world on how they're getting through, what their journey's like, perhaps inspired by some of the comments I'm sharing to try to stimulate discussion, have really blown me away with the commitment of IOSH practitioners and particularly IOSH members around the world. When I finish speaking, I'll post a link to my LinkedIn feed. And if you'd love to come and join there and get involved in those discussions, I'd really welcome it and be grateful for your contributions in the chats there. Of course, IOSH will continue to keep you updated and support you through this challenging period. Just keep an eye on the IOSH website, in particular the coronavirus resources pages, where there's a number of resources that are updated on an almost daily basis. And of course, our weekly webinars that are running too, they get posted there so you can watch a replay of those in case you missed them on Thursday afternoons. As I said at the beginning of this talk to you, right now is the moment that our profession can truly shine. The profession has never been more needed and never been more important in my view. Now is the time that we'll look back on in years to come and say, that's when things really changed. That's when we were recognized as a profession, as individuals, as leaders. That's when we were valued truly. I think this is an amazing time to be an IOSH professional, whether you're in Ireland or any other place on this planet. Now's the time to come together as one IOSH and take our profession and what we do every day right to the front. Thank you again for your time. I wish you and your loved ones the very best. Take care, and please don't forget to make some time for yourselves and your own well-being too. It will be easy for you to sit and listen to Ciarán and John talking about well-being today, but I know how busy everyone is right now. We're almost at the weekend. See if you can find just 30 minutes to carve out just for you to do something you love, whether it's kicking a soccer ball around, going to watch some shinty, having a pint of Guinness with your friends and having a bit of crack, or spending time playing with the kids. Find something that you've been missing this week. See if you can find 30 minutes to do it just for yourself this weekend. Thanks again for your time. Thank you very much. I wish you all well. Stay safe. Thanks for now. Bye-bye.
Andrew, thank you very much. Trónóna Mac Díobh, everybody. Andrew, great to see 147 of our members taking the time to join into this webinar this afternoon. Thank you so much for your presentation there, Andrew. Just have a look in the Q&A. We've got a question there relating to IT. Again, thank you for raising that, Lee. I think we'll perhaps take that one offline as an alternative to using the Zoom platform. If anyone else has any other questions for Andrew, if you could please post them into the Q&A box now, that'd be very much appreciated. Andrew, while waiting for a few more questions to come through, you've been president now for, where are we, nearly 9 months. And as you outlined in your presentation there, it's been an interesting year, I think, to say the very least. Looking back and reflecting, one thing that I've certainly noticed is your commitment, your passion, your leadership, and your ability, probably more so than any other president in history. And I actually see we've got at least one past president on this call here today with Ray. But your ability to get out there and engage through the platforms that we've got here through Zoom, I think you've certainly had great visibility there. What's that been like for you? How have you found this process and been able to, whilst not get out there and physically meet our members, but to be able to engage like this?
John, thanks for the feedback. I appreciate any feedback, whether it's positive or negative, and it's humbling to receive some nice comments. Thank you. I'm not sure I'm better at anything else than any other president before me. I just happen to be the lucky one that gets to be the next president in this line, and it is truly a great honor to represent 48,000 members of IOSH in 130 countries. How has it been for me? Well, to be completely honest with you all, I've had a tough time of being the president. I've had a tough time. It hasn't been what I've expected. particularly because of the pandemic. When the pandemic hit at the start of this year, and normally I work globally. Last year I was working in 58 different countries, including both Northern Ireland and the Republic. I'm used to being out and about. And it was one of the things I was looking most forward to as president. And in fact, a couple of the Irish branches had already got their requests in within a week of me being appointed as president for me to come over to Ireland and to talk with you. I couldn't wait, because originally coming from Scotland, there's a lot of similarities, isn't there, between us? I like a good crack, I like a good pint, and I like just hearing what's going on and getting in the mix of people. So at the start of this year, when I realized that I wouldn't be going out to branch meetings, and I had schedules all over the world to go and represent us as IOSH, including, of course, hosting the 75th year celebrations in the Tower of London, all of that was cancelled. And I struggled with it. In my own mind, I thought, my goodness, I'm going to be the worst president that IOSH has ever had. I'm going to be the only president that doesn't go out and see members. What on earth am I going to do? And I got into a bit of a black spot with that, to be honest, thinking, how on earth can I do something that justifies me being the president? So what I've tried to do, and thank you for recognizing the commitment, I've just tried to simply be at as many events like this as I possibly can. And I'm very fortunate that Sunita Patel, our coordinator of our presidential team, has just been slotting stuff into my diary every day, and I just spend my time on Zoom. And it's, whilst it's not the same, I'd love to be able to see everybody's faces. I'd love to shake some hands and have a bit of crack. It's the best that I think I can do. But if anybody has any suggestions on what I could do more of, or how to be a better president in my last 3 months, please write to me, andrew.sharman@iosh.com, or drop me a note on LinkedIn. Anything that you need from me, I'm your president representing you. And that's the only agenda I have. So if there's something that you think I'm missing or could do differently, please let me know about it. I'd love to hear from you.
That's great. Thank you, Andrew. And obviously, as the chair of council and also as the president, you're very ably supported, and great to see some of our colleagues here. You've got the PT9 around you with 6 vice presidents on one, and we've got 36 fantastic council members. And what's been really great to see for me personally over this the last 6 months, people like Ciarán stepping forward as a council member, listening to your call to get out there and engage and deliver a presentation. And you and I and Ciarán, we've been on many, many webinars like this, and I'm sure our members are going to have a really great and informative session coming up very shortly. So thank you for that, Andrew.
Sorry to interrupt you, John. Let me just leverage on a point there that you mentioned, because I wonder sometimes when I'm talking with IOSH members whether everyone understands the governance of IOSH. So it might just be worth a quick mention of council, following your lead, if I may.
Sure.
So I'm the president of IOSH, and as you just mentioned, I'm also the chair of council. These are 2 different jobs and 2 very separate jobs. As I alluded to in my opening address, council is the voice of membership. Members elect councillors to act as a conduit so that the membership voices come fed through branches or directly through individual members into councillors, and councillors bring them to the council chamber twice a year, and more often if need be, to be discussed by the council of membership, to really understand what it is that we need to be doing as a membership organisation to do the very best for our members wherever they are. And then as chair of council, it's my duty to liaise with the senior leadership team, with Bev Messenger and her SLT, and with Bill Gunyon and his board of trustees to bring forward those voices. And I think council is such a crucial body, but perhaps is underutilised, which is why I've encouraged council to earn their seats, as Ciarán's doing so brilliantly today. So I want councillors to be out, showcasing the great work that we're doing and providing this support. But I also need members to take a role in voting in the council elections. Typically, we have a very poor, low turnout, just a handful of % of members taking the time to vote. And I understand this year it's challenging. We've got 56 people standing for election for council. Some of those we may not know. But I want to trust you as members, and I ask you to trust yourselves, to just take a little bit of time with a cup of tea and just go through those list of would-be councillors, and go with your gut and your heart. Be truly Irish. Go with what feels right to you, and use that as your instinct to guide you who to elect as councillors to represent you, the members. It's really important that you cast your vote.
Great. Thank you very much, Andrew. Yep. So again, just to further that, absolutely, take a look. We've got 56 candidates there. Please make sure you read the statements, look at their videos, and engage in that process. It'd be brilliant if we could increase our turnout to record levels. So on the Q&A box, I've had a couple of questions come through. Liam Moore asks, good to have these sessions. It has been challenging times for health and safety professionals. Some of our colleagues are working excessive hours as the demands have increased enormously during COVID. What advice do you offer that would be in alignment with the Working Time Directive?
Liam, great question. Thanks. Look, my days as a health and safety lawyer are over, and I'm not familiar with the current versions of the Working Time Directives in Ireland or anywhere else, I'm afraid. So I can't give a direct comment on that. But I can let you know. Now, I just posted the link to my LinkedIn feed in the chat box. I can let you know about something that's happening on LinkedIn this week. I did a little video feed, 60 seconds, where someone had said, what can IOSH people do right now when they're working so hard to make sure they look after their own well-being? So I filmed a little video in my garden, and you can laugh at this if you wish, of course. But one of the things that I do to kind of de-stress a bit is get into a bit of gardening. I only have a small garden here in Switzerland, but I'm growing lots of tomatoes and courgettes and salads and herbs and a few other bits and pieces. And I've noticed that for the last few weeks, when I'm particularly stressed, I get out there in the sunshine and start doing a wee bit of gardening or weeding or pruning the tomatoes. I end up having a wee chat with the tomatoes. Now, I know that makes me sound a bit silly, but look, I don't want embarrassing myself in front of you guys. And I find that when I've done that, I kind of feel quite light and lifted and relaxed and refreshed. So I think, as I made the point at the end of my address to you, we've got to find ways to make the balance. It's great right now. Maybe I'm linking a question from Mick Melia here that's in the chat box, and please everybody try to put your questions into Q&A, but picking up on Mick Melia's point, saying is the IOSH role going to be harder due to COVID? I think it is hard right now. IOSH professionals around the world are all working tremendously hard because we've suddenly come to the front as our businesses have said, tell us what we need to know about this, tell us how to manage this risk. And isn't that a wonderful opportunity? Every IOSH practitioner in every country around the world at the same time has suddenly become validated by their organizations. But there's also too much of a good thing, isn't there? And perhaps we might all be giving a little bit too much every now and again. So we need to be mindful of this and try to watch ourselves, but also listen to those that we trust, our loved ones and our close friends and colleagues who might say, hey, you're looking a bit worn out. Hey, you're still sending emails at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, are you all right? And let's try to take these little nudges and tips. It would be great to follow that lead if we can.
Great. Thank you very much, Andrew. We have a question here from Angus. Angus asks, hi, Andrew. I've not met anyone who has had COVID-19. Can you tell me more about your symptoms and recovery, and are there any lasting health issues? If you're happy to answer that, Andrew, is there anything there you could share with us?
Yeah, look, I think the symptoms have been pretty common. You've heard about most of the symptoms online. The symptoms that are continuing for me is I still feel really tired. In fact, my colleague Jimmy Quinn, who's president-elect, I just saw him join this session. Great to have you here, Jimmy. Jimmy also had COVID-19 a few weeks before me. So I was fortunate that when my symptoms arrived, I recognized them as the things that Jimmy had been talking to me about. And as we continued to talk through that time, Jimmy had told me that he had felt like he'd recovered from COVID, but it was still lingering on. And he talked about the symptoms that I was then to get. This tiredness, the aching in limbs and joints, particularly a pain around the ribs, back and hips and knees and elbows and shoulders, especially when I was lying down or sitting or standing up. These pains seemed to kind of really stick around for a while. I wondered whether they were old age. I'm going to be 50 in a few years. So I wondered whether it was that setting in, but Jimmy assured me, though, it was connected to COVID, as did the doctors that I was talking to.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Andrew. Question here from Morris, and again, conscious of time, Andrew, I think this is probably the last question we're going to have time for, because I know you have a hard stop. What is the IOSH guidance on a structured approach to workplace mental health, and where can I get further information? Yeah, thanks, Morris. Great question. You're going to get further information every week as we do these COVID webinars. There's a stack of wellbeing stuff there. In fact, week before last, I chaired one with Dr. John Briffa, all about wellbeing. It's fantastic. You can download it on the iosh.com/coronavirus, the coronavirus resources pages. And there's loads of stuff on wellbeing there too. So I'd encourage you to do that as your first port of call.
You can share all of this stuff too. When we make it publicly available, share it in your networks. So as some American colleagues of mine say, take it and run. Share it with as many people as you can.
Yeah, that's great. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Andrew. And just to validate, you're talking to your tomatoes from your garden in Switzerland. Nigel says, every successful gardener talks their plants. So saith Nigel's gardener wife. So thank you for that, Nigel. I also understand Prince Charles does the same too. So you're in good company there, Andrew. Great. So Andrew, I do know you need to head off very shortly in a few minutes. Yeah, we have Jimmy Quinn here, President-elect. Jimmy, do you have anything you'd like to say to our members this afternoon?
No, thank you, John. Just hi, and lovely to be here supporting the network and supporting our good friend Ciarán Delaney. Lovely to see our president, and lovely to see you, John. All good.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, Jimmy. So, unless there's any final questions to come through for Andrew, no, I think Andrew, that's great. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with the Ireland branches today. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Great to be here. Thanks, everybody, for your time. Look forward to talking with you on LinkedIn or by email. Anything you need, please reach out to us and the team. Wish you all a great day. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andrew. Great. So we'll now hand over to Ciarán Delaney, who's going to be presenting COVID-19, mitigating the effects. Ciarán, over to you, good self. Ciarán, you need to unmute yourself, sir.
Good afternoon, folks. Andrew, thank you very much for your introduction, and to John for handling the Q&A. I also want to thank Jimmy for his few words, and also Dimple, who is supporting us with the technical support back at base. So if we could go to the first slide, please, Jonathan. And this session was designed by the IOSH presidential team. It aims to raise awareness on important issues relative to mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic. Its goal is to provide our members with basic information to enable them to protect themselves and their families during this difficult times. By the end of this, you will be able to describe the negative spiral of psychosocial issues and when to reach out to either your GP or a psychological or social counsellor for assistance. The topics we will cover are the stages of prevention, the three variables that determine stress, the risk of COVID-19, the negative spiral of multiple psychosocial issues, breaking the chain of causation, and we will conclude with an information sheet. There will be 2 Zoom polls during this session, and if Dimple, you could bring up the first poll, please. Thank you so much. And the poll, this very simple question: do you feel anxiety or stress due to the current situation? So very simple, either yes or no. So if you could do that now, I would be very grateful. It's going to be interesting to see the figures. I've attended a number of these webinars around the IOSH network, and I'm not going to preempt the results, but as Jonathan will tell you, they vary depending on the region. How are we doing, Dimple, as regards participation?
So we have about 116 out of the 152 that have voted so far, and that's going up.
Fantastic. We'll just wait another few seconds so that we can get as wide a representation to see how we're all doing at the present time. Anytime you're ready to share, Dimple, I leave it in your capable hands. And that is fairly consistent with what we've seen around the networks, especially around the UK. I've attended quite a few of those. So we have 62% of people who are feeling anxiety due to the current situation, and 38% who aren't. And I mean, that's, I suppose, down to how different people cope with the different situations. So thanks very much. Can we go to the next slide, so please? Thank you very much. So the science of public health suggests that there are 3 levels of prevention. Primary prevention, keeping healthy people healthy. Secondary prevention is when people start to show indications of a problem and take steps to mitigate the effect. And the tertiary prevention is when people are ill, to provide support. In thinking about these levels, our primary role is to keep ourselves healthy and primary prevention. Under the stresses of the current situation, our next goal is to mitigate the effect of when we show indications of a problem. When things reach a point where mitigation strategies are not successful, we need to seek help. The slide that you see on your screen at the moment is taken from the soon-to-be published IOSH Mental Health Guide. And the image was provided by Chartered Fellow Chris German from his publication, Can We Talk About Mental Health? The image shows that merely putting in place reactive control measures to respond to workers with mental ill health is insufficient. One of the key principles of IOSH is to put in place preventative controls to avoid harm being caused. Preventative controls need to be introduced at the stage where a worker's mental health is healthy. Such controls can be identified by measuring potential mental ill health stresses in the workplace through risk assessment or other means. All controls implemented after this stage, for example, at a struggling and unwell stage, will be reactive as an individual has already begun to experience mental ill health symptoms. Some prime examples of reactive controls are worker employee assistance programs, EAPs, and mental health first aiders, MHFAs. So IOSH has 6 priorities, and you can see that slide on the screen now. Non-health related fatalities, rehabilitation, return to work, sustainability and human capital, musculoskeletal disorders, occupational cancer, and what we're focusing on today, mental health and well-being. This presentation is what we're focusing on. So a prominent researcher in the area of stress at work is Robert Kaczmarek from the University of Massachusetts in the States. The Kaczmarek model demonstrates that stress can be manifested by 3 variables: an individual's perception of demand, an individual's perception of control, and an individual's perception of social support. When the demand is perceived as high, when the control is perceived as low, and when there is a lack of social support, the individual is stressed and there are frequently negative health outcomes. Although Kaczmarek's model focuses on workplace stress, it's also quite applicable to the Covid-19 pandemic. Fearing the outcome of the virus translates into a perception of high demand for good health and survival. Most people have a perception of not being able to control the outcome, and isolation can translate into a lack of social support. As health and safety professionals on this webinar, we base a great deal of what we do on risk assessment. I think most of us would agree that negative outcomes of the virus are likely and the severity is considerable, as Andrew has related to and others that I have spoken to have shared with me. The high risk rating also adds to individual perceived fears. And as you can see, it's, low risk is acceptable, medium risk is tolerable, and high risk is not acceptable. And as you may have seen if you've been watching the Department of Health briefings in the last few days, that as a result of the R figure heading higher, they have stopped going to the next phase. So we need to be careful as we proceed. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. The year 2001 marked the ILO's entry into the area of stress at work. The ILO, if you don't know what that stands for, is the International Labour Organization. The ILO described model by which stress could trigger one or more negative outcomes, or any or all of the negative outcomes could trigger stress, leading to a negative spiral or negative synergistic effect. The National Autistic Society, when delivering coping strategies to the autistic community, speak of what they term as the whisk effect. In plain English, the more you focus on an issue, the deeper the issue causing stress becomes and can become overwhelming if you do not have coping measures available to help you. For example, the stress associated with COVID-19 generated, as mentioned before, through high demand, lack of control, and lack of social support may put an individual in a frame of mind that precipitates a lack of sleep or substance abuse, which in turn could lead to psychological or physical violence. It has been reported during the pandemic, there has been a surge of domestic violence, acts of discrimination are also on the increase. I would ask that you pay particular attention to this slide because you will be doing a poll on this in a minute. And here we have examples of outcomes that can be a source or a result of other outcomes. Stress, addictive behaviors, psychological and physical violence, inadequate sleep, inadequate nutrition, inadequate physical exercise, social insecurity, and financial insecurity. So if we could have that second poll now, please. And what we're asking you to do is that you can see that you have a number of options. So what I would ask you to do is participate that. If you've none, fantastic. And then whether you've 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. If you want, you can move the poll over to your left or to your right, so that you can see the slide a bit better and then fill it in. And we'll give you a little time to fill in this poll. So as I said now, it's just a case of, are you experiencing stress, inadequate exercise, addictive behaviors, social insecurity, financial insecurity, inadequate sleep, inadequate nutrition, and violence. Right, I'm getting messages up here, Dimple, that people are not seeing the poll for some reason.
The poll has been launched and I have 107 responses so far. So it should have popped up on your screen. It could even be minimized. So if you have a look, you may see a taskbar at the bottom of Zoom.
Thanks very much, Dimple. Really appreciate your support today. Thank you so much.
%78% have voted.
Well, we'll give them another few seconds so that we can get a broad range of people as we can. So we go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dimple, could you oblige me, please, and share the results of the poll, please, when you're ready.
Sharing now.
That is one of the highest percentages that I have seen for none at 15%. And if you look at 1 or 2, that comes up to 44%, 3, 31%, 4, 9%, and more than 4 is 1%. That is untypical of what we've seen around the place, and maybe it's because that we, because of our nature and the way that we may have a brighter outlook on things, that we have got such strong figures. But what I will say to you is that if you suffer any issues, and we will come to this later in the poll, please do reach out, do talk to us. We are all here to support you. So could I have the next slide, please? And this is breaking the change of causality. Next slide, please. Apologies. Right. The World Health Organization, sorry, could you go back? My apologies, my slides are different to what you up here, but here we go. A recent communication from the World Health Organization suggested that constant news reports about the current situation can lead to the feeling of anxiety and stress. It suggests to seek updates and practical guidance at specific times during the day from health professionals and the World Health Organization website, and avoid listening to or following rumors that make you feel uncomfortable. Some of you may remember that Sky News had a COVID-free news channel during the height of the pandemic, and even now the Irish Examiner has launched a COVID-free newsletter which is delivered every Monday. But there are also other actions that we can take to break this chain of causality. Next slide, please. The World Health Organization proposes 7 important roles of the occupational health and safety professional during the COVID-19 pandemic. Related to this presentation are assessing the risks, providing risk communication engagement of workers, psychosocial support, collaborating with community and public health authorities. The full list of the 7 roles for your information are: assess the risks, infectious and non-infection hazards, develop and update plans for prevention, containment, mitigation and recovery, identify high-risk occupational groups, provide risk communication advice on preventative measures, health surveillance, occupational health and safety and alternative work arrangements, teleworking, staged work, participate in business continuity plans, assess risk, identify, record and follow up occupational exposure, provide risk communication and engagement of workers, psychosocial supports, and collaborate with your community and public health authorities. The image that you're seeing here is a concept taken from the soon-to-be-published IOSH Wellbeing Guide, written by IOSH content developer Chris Burrow. These are 3 key areas that organizations can focus on within their wellbeing strategies to help improve workplace wellbeing. Occupational safety. Our workers need to feel safe whilst working. Wellbeing can be improved if this is achieved. Ill health. Risks that can cause ill health such as occupational disease, physical injuries, disabilities, work-related stress, and mental health. Remember that mental health can be influenced in the workplace and a worker's personal life. The management of mental health will be focused on workplace causes. However, further support should be offered or signposted to for those whose mental health is caused by domestic, personal affairs and events. It is in the interest of the organization to address mental ill health as holistically as possible. It can have workplace consequences, whatever the cause. As regards general health promotion, although organizations cannot force health benefit approaches or healthy lifestyle choices onto your workers, they are able to educate them within these areas. You can provide encouragement for workers. It can help them to make positive health-based choices and lifestyle choices to improve their work and personal lives. Some general health promotion topics could be the work-life balance, nutrition and physical activity, healthy sleeping, recreational substance use, mental ill health therapies and self-help, task and financial management, general or further education, cognitive stimulation, and social skills. The IOSH Head of Health and Safety, Ruth Wilkinson, in a recent webinar suggested that on a personal level, we need to focus on ourselves and others by looking after and listening to our own mental and physical health and well-being. We need to look after our own health and safety. We need to be maintaining our work-life balance. And what do I mean by that? Very, very simple, folks. Turn off your devices at the end of the day. Make me time, as Andrew said at the start of the meeting. Switch off, because if you keep on going and going and going, you're going to burn out. That's why you have to maintain your work-life balance for yourself and your family. It is essential. Keeping up to date, avoiding misinformation and fake news, and also talking about how we're feeling. Sharing, if you think about it, if you share a problem, it's basically you're having the problem because you're talking to someone else, someone that you can trust who's going to be there for you. Next slide, please. And as I said, Your well-being is important in caring for yourself and others. If you feel that you're losing control and overwhelmed by events, seek support, social support from family and friends. Contact your GP for assistance, and if you have access to a psychological or social counsellor, please avail of these resources. A priest in Kerry was given a homily at a funeral mass for a young man who took his own life. Made one of the wisest statements I've ever heard to the congregation. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Never was a truer word said. If you feel that you need immediate aid, remember that the Ciaráns are at the end of a phone on 116 123 24 hours a day, and it's a non-judgmental confidential service. Other services are available that you can find. Here is an information sheet that summarizes some of the key points of the presentation that you can download and you can share with members, colleagues, families, and friends. IOSH have got a whole series of resources. The link is there on the page. The World Health Organization has also got resources, as has the ILO. And to assist you, we also have a slide dedicated to resources available in the Republic of Ireland. And as you can see, we have the Health Service Executive, the Health and Safety Authority, and resources from the Irish government. So I hope that this has been of benefit to you. Thank you so much for your attention this afternoon. A copy of this PowerPoint and information sheet can be found on our website on the coronavirus resources page within IOSH team updates. And now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jonathan Hughes, who will take the question and answer session. And Jimmy, if you want to feel that you can be of any assistance to our members, please feel free to chip in.
That's great, Ciarán. Thank you very much for an excellent presentation there. If anybody's got any questions or comments, if you could please post that in the Q&A box, which you can usually find at the bottom of your screen, or you can post it in the chat and then we can ask Ciarán from there. One question we have from Adele is, when is the IOSH mental health guidance due for release, please? Ciarán, or Jimmy, do we have a release date?
Jimmy, I'll let you take that one if that's okay with you, my friend.
I'm not aware of any release date, John.
No, we don't know, Adele. I guess keep checking back onto IOSH.com and the information will be on there. It'll be communicated through Connect. Alternatively, again, we can take that offline and we can make contact with you as and when that information is published. But thank you for that question.
Michael Collins, the new Ireland Regional Manager, I'm sure will be sharing that information with branches, both in the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland as soon as that's been released by the institution.
Thank you, Ciarán. Talking about Michael's posted a question here. Are there any support links or further information for members in Northern Ireland?
Well, as we have gone along and we specifically focused on the Republic of Ireland today for the 3 Irish branches, that's why we focused. I'm sure that our colleague in Northern Ireland, our colleagues in Northern Ireland, the Northern Ireland branch, when they're delivering their own COVID-19 presentation, would have those available. But I'm sure that if you go to HSCNI and to your local health trust in Northern Ireland, that you will find those resources available.
Great, thank you, Ciarán. Nigel shares his best wishes, says excellent presentation, Ciarán. Glad it's available on the website. Thank you for that feedback, Nigel. That's much appreciated. Patrick Brolly asks in the Q&A chat, thank you for a very informative presentation. I would like to ask your opinion on essential workers. As a self-employed chartered member, would us practitioners be classed as essential workers for preference in certain situations? For example, DVLA renewing a driver's license. Any thoughts on essential workers there, Ciarán?
As regards renewal of driving license, to the best of my knowledge, I can give you direct, as regards myself, that my NCT, which is your equivalent of your MOT test in the UK, has been extended, the validity has been extended for 4 months here without even being asked. So in relation to issues regarding your driving license, I would advise that you contact your local NDLS, that's the National Driving License Service, and ask them to guide you as to what resources they have. I do believe that a number of state agencies are going along and are automatically extending even a simple thing like a library book. All library books were being automatically extended. Books that I took out at the start of the pandemic are due for return on July 31st.
Great. Thank you, Ciarán. Patrick's just followed that up to say, for example, including the COVID-19 test. Certainly from the UK here, anybody who has symptoms, they can request a COVID-19 test. Is that a similar situation in the Republic of Ireland, Ciarán, or is it different?
If you require a COVID-19 test, you need to contact your GP, who will go along and discuss the symptoms with you, and then they will arrange for the test at the centres that have been provided by the Health Service Executive around the Republic of Ireland. As regards Northern Ireland, I'm not au fait with that. The reason being that as I have focused on this presentation for the Republic of Ireland, I would not be competent to discuss the North of Ireland. And as you know, Jonathan, 4 key tenets of our code of conduct is competency, respect, integrity and service. And I want to be respectful of the members and show my integrity by saying if I have pre-existing knowledge, I will go along and share it. If I don't, I will have the integrity and respect for the members to say that I don't know, but we will go along. And I'm sure that Michael Collins, as the regional manager for the island of Ireland, will have no hesitation in working with his Northern Irish colleagues to put whatever resources are there.
Yeah, thank you, Ciarán. Just to emphasise the point there about integrity and competence. I don't know if you've heard on wider news, but here in the UK, a so-called IOSH professional has been taken before the courts, prosecuted and fined for giving incompetent advice. That was in relation to hand-arm vibration. Created some risk assessments for one of his clients, which he did not have the competency to do, and has found himself in the courts. Just reading through some of the other comments here. David, thank you. David Platts says the 5 healthcare trusts issue help sheets, re-available help for mental health issues in Northern Ireland. Thank you for that, David.
Jonathan, could I ask if David could, that if he has the time before the end of this, would he oblige us by putting the links into our Q&A session so that people could click on those, and that would be very, very handy for those people in Northern Ireland, and that Michael Collins might actually copy those links and engage with the support team in IOSH for uploading information to the branch websites, and those links could be posted to the Northern Irish website. I'm sure that Michael Collins will have no problem in facilitating that.
That's absolutely great. Thank you. I can see on the chat box, Ricky and also Ray have offered some great advice regarding NDLS appointments. I can see that these comments only go to the panelists, so the rest of the team on the call here can't actually see that. Ricky or Ray, if I could ask you to post that in the Q&A, just as a matter of interest for our other members, that'd be much appreciated, because then everybody can see that. If not, then in the next couple of minutes, I'll copy and paste that myself. A comment or question here from Ger. Ger asks, any opinion on bringing maintenance workers in from the UK? Is that classified as essential work?
It depends on what type of maintenance they're doing. It also depends on what the government advice that's going to be, that's due to be issued next Monday. As those on this call who are based in the Republic of Ireland are aware, that there is a green list due to be published, and the initial soundings that are going along coming out are that the UK will not be one of those countries that they're suggesting that, and that is speculation that is in the media at the present time, that the United States and the United Kingdom, because of the current prevalence of COVID in those two countries, that there are issues. And as you may, people on this webinar may have seen, there are concerns from NEFIT that we are heading back towards high levels. We are up to 1.4. There are talks that we may reach 1.8. As a result of those figures, we are going along, this next phase has been stopped. And as regards to the opening of pubs, you may also have seen that a person was arrested on an Irish rail service from Cork to Dublin for not wearing a face mask, and that's one of the first arrests where they were spoken to and then by the Gardaí, and then were arrested for a subsequent offence later on the journey. So it depends on whether it comes under the Irish government's definition of what a critical maintenance worker is, and whether the protocols that are being discussed by NEFIT and the Government of Ireland over the weekend, what that information will contain. So as I said earlier, in relation to competence and integrity, until this new guidance is supplied, I cannot give a categorical answer to that.
Thank you, Ciarán. Appreciate your response there. Thank you. Nigel asks, do you think the mandatory wearing of face coverings will affect people's mental well-being? If so, how?
That is a difficult one. What I will say is that you may have seen at the start of the presentation that I've been appointed as chair of a Paralympic sport called bocce. And speaking to my colleagues, the actual athletes who are Paralympians, anybody who has asthma or any respiratory disability or illness, they won't be able to travel because they are scared of, one, they won't be able to breathe because of cause restriction could trigger an attack, and two, they don't feel safe going out. As regards wearing a mask, that I'm not competent to answer that question, and I'm not going to speculate on what I don't know. I can only go with the direct evidence that I have, and I have seen nothing empirical knowledge. Jimmy, I don't know whether you've heard anything in the UK that you might be able to help me out with this, but I don't know whether, what basis there would be for this to have an impact on the general population's mental health.
No, I'm unsure as well, Ciarán, but I could take it away and do a little bit of investigating and see where we're at and if IOSH is going to be coming up with anything in the meantime. But no, unsure, mate. I think you've answered it as best you can.
Yeah, thank you, Ciarán. Thank you, Jimmy. In the chat, Damien raises a great point here. Thank you for your comment, Damien. He says, those of us who already had been battling with our own anxieties and mental health issues have been relatively well equipped to cope with the pandemic. So it's worth keeping an eye on family and friends who are usually more outgoing and unaffected by mental health issues. Ask them how they are. Again, very wise words there, Damien. Thank you. Ciarán, any follow-up to that?
Yeah, I have been reaching out to quite a few people. Just a quick call, quick WhatsApp message. How are you doing? And what it is some people have come along and have said, oh, thanks for the call. And then they may share something, and they may be, I had one person who was in a bad place and I happened to phone at the right time. And I ended up being on a call for 3.5 hours, right, to a colleague in IOSH. And I didn't care how long it took, but at the end of that call, that person was in a far better place. And a few days later, reached back out to me and said, thank you very much for taking the time for talking to me. And with anybody else, anything that you say to myself, to Jimmy, to John, to Andrew, is in confidence. We are all here to support you. My email and phone number is, they're all over the IOSH forums. So if anybody wants to talk to me, a simple number, well, that's international, 086 0595 444. I'm on WhatsApp. You need somebody to talk to, give me a shout. If I can support you or guide you towards resources to help you, that's what I'm here for. That's why when I went forward for re-election to council, that I said I would be there to support the members. As both you, John, and Jimmy can attest to, I've been zooming all over the world, engaging with the members, supporting members from the Caribbean to the UAE, to the UK, to New Zealand, to Ireland. I'm the first council member to deliver a presentation. And just to reinforce what Andrew said earlier, as soon as we're finished here, folks, I'm actively encouraging you to go along, go onto the IOSH website, look at the statements. You all have received an email outlining how to vote, and please make your vote count, because I can guarantee you, I have been working my proverbial off to get 50, and that's why we have 56 people. I was fed up of hearing for year after year after year, oh, it's an old boys club. And you can see Jimmy's got a big smile on his face because he knows, right, that I'm after, it's no longer an old boys and girls club, because we've got such a high turnover. And what it is, that's what we need. So the guys and ladies around the globe have put themselves forward. Please show them, right, the respect to take the time to look at their statements, vote, make council relevant, and next year, some of you on this webinar might consider going forward and putting yourself forward, because it's, as Andrew said, if you're inside on council, you can help affect change. I've never shied away, and I know that Jimmy will smile at this as well. I've never shied away about raising issues in council. And what it is that's because members come to me. Members trust me that if they come to an issue, I'm not going to say where the issue came from. And there are other members out there, so please vote. But I just want to, as I said, talk to people, reach to people. There are also helplines out there. Talk to your GP, talk to a mental health professional, reach out there. Remember what the priest in Kerry said. Talk. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Don't let an issue take you over. Turn off the news, turn off Twitter, turn off Facebook. To use Northern Ireland, if there's anybody here from Northern Ireland, there's a fantastic program. It's called Give My Head Some Peace. And that's it. Give your head some peace. Switch off. Look at a book. Go out and for a walk. Go and basically go onto the library. There are free downloads of audiobooks all around the place. Make that time for yourself. Make that time for your family. And I can guarantee you, you're going to make yourself feel a hell of a lot better. And the other thing is, remember, you also have a do not disturb feature on all smartphones. Set the time that once it comes to 8 o'clock at night, you don't get any calls. You can favorite numbers for those loved ones who may need to call you or whatever. Other than that, you've got peace and quiet. Then you can focus on your mental health and well-being, and those of the who are close to you.
That's great. Thank you very much for that, Ciarán. So that draws us to the close of our webinar. Ciarán, thank you ever so much for presenting that. You are the first council member to deliver that, so a big well done and thank you. It's been absolutely fantastic. Testament again to the comments and feedback that we've had. Last comment on there, thanks very much indeed for the great presentation. Inspirational, Morris says, so thank you so much, Ciarán. Jimmy, is there anything you'd like to add before we close the webinar?
No, John, only to say I thought it was fantastic and great support and well hosted, sir. I'm sorry I was late. I was dealing with a situation on site. So I just listened to a toolbox talk with 40 fantastically energetic Romanians. So yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, apologies I was late, but I got your presentation, Ciarán, and that was the main thing, and very well done, sir. First council member. Brilliant. Thanks, John.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you very much, Jimmy.
John, one last thing, just so in case people are concerned, we will go through any questions that we haven't got to after this webinar, and we will endeavour to get answers to the questions. That's something that has been done around the place. So if there is also very easy email, ciarán@gmail.com. That's CIARAN council@gmail.com. Send me an email and I will do it. Jonathan, Jimmy, Goramila Margut, Dimple, Goramila Margut, thank you so much for your fantastic support.
That's great. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend when you get there. Stay safe and hopefully see you all soon. Goodbye.